Growing up in Beijing, what are the sounds of Beijing? There must be all sorts of sounds. I feel like composers have the sounds in their head when they're growing up. We have composers like a Bartok or people, or even Stravinsky, or people who when they wrote, when they composed, they were hearing sounds they heard in their youth. They were hearing sounds in their culture, hearing the ethnic sounds of their culture. Talk about something about the sounds in your head, the sounds of Beijing, I assume. And they may not all be just musical sounds. They may be sounds that you just have heard since you were little. As a composer, what sort of sounds of Beijing, the sonic landscape of Beijing, is in your head when you compose?
Wow. It's so rich.
Yeah.
When I think about it, the first thing popping in my head is 磨剑子嘞，枪才刀 with the halang, halang. It's the knife.
The knife.
Sharpen.
I think we call them in the West peddler's cries or something. But people have a trade, the knife sharpener.
Yes,
right?
yeah. Then they just walk through hutong and the small alleys in Beijing, and then just with the metal pieces, and it's really loud.
Oh, I see. So it does have also the metal.
Metal
aspect,
is kind of like a percussion instrument.
They call them yao he.
The yao he 声音.
Yeah.
And then they will sing this little melody, and then to
that's
tell
interesting,
the
because
neighborhood.
there's a whole rich tradition of these peddlers' cries, right?
Yes.
So when you were a kid, you were still hearing those,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Oh, there's even some crosstalk, some xiangsheng crosstalk, where they talk about these peddlers.
Yes,
cries.
it's so rich. My father knows even more.
Yeah. When you sang that just now, that's really in your ear.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
And
what else? Yes.
And another sound is the pigeons.
Pigeons.
The pigeons with the whistles in their back or somewhere on their body on top of the, and they're usually a group of pigeons, maybe 30 to 50, and then they fly together. And then fly far away. And every morning when I went to school, my dad took me to school on his bike, and I could hear like, that's the sound every morning.
I think
pigeons.
I heard that. Yeah. Wow, amazing. Yeah.
Because I grew up in the hutong, so.
In the hutong, in the back alleys of Beijing. Oh, interesting. Yeah.
That's another very typical sound in my childhood.
Yeah.
Of course, another one is just a random Peking opera singing group in parks every morning.
Yeah.
You walk in the park, and then you see like older folks, 3 to 5 per group in different corners of a park. They just sing.
Which you can still see that now, even in the parks, right?
Yeah.
A lot of amateur Peking opera singers who know the repertoire by heart, and they're there with some good erhu players and everything. Jinghu.
Jinghu. Yeah, they're fantastic.
Yeah. So the sounds of Peking opera, the pigeons. What else? What was on the radio at that time? When are we talking about here? I don't want to give your age away. But we're talking about the 80s or something?
Well, that's in the 80s I was in elementary school.
Yeah. So Beijing also had the sound of traffic, also some chaotic kinds of sounds too, right?
Right, like sound of people in courtyard making dinner in the courtyard and washing clothes and chatting and arguing, fighting. Yeah, because when you live in a hutong area and everything's open.
Yeah.
And then you just hear all sorts of like metal buckets, and bump into another thing, clang, clang, and then someone, complaining and arguing, fighting, or just radio and trying to tune a radio to a news channel or some.
Maybe nowadays it would be the sound of cars crashing into each other on the Third Ring Road.
Yeah, I just heard one yesterday. It's pretty bad.
Yeah. So this is fascinating to me, because it says even though you're from a different culture, there's so many tie-ins to all composers, all people who do music. I think they get a great deal of inspiration from these non-musical sounds in their environment. Yeah. Even Duke Ellington, the great composer, African-American jazz composer, had so many influences in his music from his childhood. Even had a piece called Harlem Air Shaft that was the sounds of a building, of an apartment building in Harlem, the air shaft.
Yeah.
And just as you said, you could hear the people arguing downstairs or the TV on and all the sounds that he heard from his youth,
Yes.
So it's fascinating. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Just like living as a regular person, as a human being, and that's what we experience. But I think for composers and musicians, they capture and somehow the sound makes more impression in their ears than maybe regular folks.